Hello everyone and welcome back for what's really a concluding part to my previous video. I'm so sorry, I did my usual thing and thumped my camera just a little bit too hard as I was trying to move it, and sensitive soul that it is, it just went, nope, I'm stopping now. So yeah, now the recording I believe cut off halfway through me moaning about the fact that the Argentinians had redeployed the 25th of May, or indeed ordered her to remain on station, because that will complicate my play next turn. The presence of Argentinian naval units definitely affects the supply situation. So again, I'm going to either have to get rid of that vessel or hope that she puts back into port and stays there. You'd have thought the loss of Belgrano would have made them more cautious, but in a slight break from the history, Admiral Anayas being somewhat more aggressive in this game. There was always the danger that that would happen. So what followed really, and again, it's a shame my camera cut off when it did, because we got to that stage in the turn where all that needed to be done was a general cleanup and the current events, or headline events as they call them in the game. So what I've done, having realized the camera died, and you all know what a clear up is like, so I've essentially landed all the surviving aircraft. The Brits have returned to their carriers. The Argentine aircraft have returned to their bag, which is over there. And so it only remains to finish the turn off. So what happens at the very end of the turn is called the headlines phase. And there's a table on one of the player aid cards. What you do is roll a dice and add the current turn number. So let's see what happens. And I've rolled a 1. So given that it's turn 9, that's a 10. Okay, so we get 6 events altogether. The first is the Black Buck air raid, and that was the attack by the Vulcans, the long-range bombers, on Port Stanley. And while the raids were not very effective, they had just enough of a morale impact to be of service. So what happens I'm going to look at the headlines list. The rulebook contains a long, detailed list of all the headlines you can get and their explanations. But rather than forcing you to squint at the fine print, I'm just going to explain what happens. So with the Black Bucks, you have to roll a dice, and you recover that many points of BBC News popularity. That's a very timely event for me, because I said in the previous game my popularity, or not so much my personal popularity, haha, but my home support for the war and the popularity of Thatcher's government has never been so low in this game, so we need to do something about that. So the Vulcans go in, and they net us, I don't know if you can see that, 5 points worth. So much to my relief, the BBC has climbed back to a sensible threshold. In even better news, if you roll a 5 or a 6, then one of the Argentine garrison units from Stanley is forced to retreat. And that's determined randomly. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's see who is pulled back. Okay, so on the southern front, the bombing of Stanley worries the Argentine High Command, and they suspect that an invasion may be imminent. So earlier in the game, they were trying to establish a defense line as forward as possible. Now they're having second thoughts, and they're pulling this group out of Bluff Cove and putting them on the more defensible Mount Harriet. So their line is now beginning to do that. Perfectly fine with me, but I have to get there first, and as you saw in the previous video, I am not doing very well. But anyway, thank you to the RAF for providing that much needed help. The next thing is UN peace plan. Now this is a tricky one, because the UN proposes peace talks. If you're in need of a breather from the fighting, it can be worth accepting them, because what it does is it effectively wastes time. Or if you feel you can manage it, you can reject the peace proposals so that you can carry on fighting the next turn. Now, I think because we've taken a bit of a battering, I know time is a crucial factor in the game, but I am going to accept because it doesn't stop me maneuvering. It just puts a major effect on my. It impacts negatively on my ground fighting. So I will accept the UN proposals. I mean, not accept, we'll agree to discuss them. We'll probably reject them, but it just means the diplomacy marker appears on the turn track for next turn, and all the negative combat bonuses that it carries will apply. So, what was the next one? We next had shady arms dealers. Oh no, this lot support the Argentines, and they usually do things that are not good for me. So we've rolled a 5 on that. And the result of that is apartheid South Africa sends arms and intelligence to Argentina. Advance 1 random Blue Star Argentine unit, but raise the BBC threshold by +5 due to the backlash against Argentina among African and other third world countries. Oh, okay. So that's a bit of a double-edged sword then. So the Argentines get to advance either that one or that one. This unit cannot advance any further because there's a friendly hidden unit blocking their path. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So on the centre front, they advance from Mount Kent and establish new lines over here in open ground. That's quite nice, actually. And as a bonus, I suddenly get some support globally because people disapprove of this association. Quite rightly, too. So that was that. What's the next event? Sidewinder missiles. The US supplies Sidewinder missiles for the British Harriers. Now, unfortunately for me, this effect has no further game bonuses for me. And the reason for that is I'd rolled this event a lot previously, so all of my surviving Harriers are now equipped with US Sidewinders. So shame about that. Nice to know the US is still offering them, but it doesn't really help me much anymore. Next, it's Viva Argentina. And Viva Argentina is another advance. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Behaving in a slightly contradictory fashion this turn, but they are confidently pushing their defense line back out again. So this poor unit here is having a bit of a grand old Duke of York moment. So they've having been ordered back to Mount Harriet in response to my RAF bombing raid, they've now decided, actually, no, that's not a great idea. Head back to Bluff Cove. Sorry. It will all make sense in the end. There is a plan. That has neatened up their line a bit. So we shall see. We shall see what happens in future. Lastly, collision. I hate this event. It's the one that tends to take my Harriers out of circulation. If I roll a 6, I lose a Harrier permanently. On any other number, it goes into the repair box and is unavailable next turn. All right, I'll take a 2. I don't mind, because at least it means I will get that Harrier back at the end of next turn. And so that is it. That brings the turn to a close, and I would advance the turn marker to turn 10. And that is a complete game turn of Mrs. Thatcher's war. And it's a complete game turn at a point where everything is happening. As I say, you've got air operations, naval operations, ground ops. You've got to worry about what's happening on your home front and internationally. So before I conclude the video, let's just take a quick flyby to see what the strategic situation is looking like. So in terms of permanent removals from play, the British have been doing much better than the Argentines. I did lose that Harrier. I lost it to operational reasons, sadly, rather than in combat. I mean, it's always sad to lose a plane, though, and the British really feel every permanent loss. The Argentines have lost a number of jets, but nothing that has massively degraded their air force's capability. I think out of everything they've lost so far, the Superentendades are the most painful. They of course have lost the General Belgrano, which did make them wince a bit. But as you can see, their navy's actually bounced back from that quite well. On East Falkland, again, tragically, as we saw, the British Army has not really done very well in terms of pushing out of the San Carlos landing zone. I'm kind of worried. I know that this turn, because the stuffed counter is available, we have a good chance of getting helicopters. But they are in a lot of danger because there's the ever-present threat to the merchant ships of Argentine air attack. They still have 3 Exocets unaccounted for by us. So there's a lot to be concerned about, and we really need to start pushing forward. There really isn't that much time until late June. But otherwise, it could be worse. I mean, we have taken a beating in these early days, but I haven't lost any ground units permanently. There are reinforcements in the offing, and I'm reasonably certain we can start rolling them up. The critical thing, as always, is air supremacy. I've really got to try harder to secure that. And part of the problem, as we can see if I shuffle over to the strategic map, is that Argentine air strength on the mainland is significant. This is where it gets complicated for the Royal Navy, because we have to carry on making forays on this side just to provide a strong aerial shield against all these grupos. But we've also got to leave enough to contest mastery of the air over the Falklands. And how you balance that is one of the toughest decisions you'll face in this game. In fact, after the performance, the previous actions, I'm wondering whether it might not be worth just abandoning the preemptive strikes and just trying to use every aircraft I have to contest dominance over this airspace, because that might well prove the way forward. Because it's a difference of 6 Harriers, and that is a lot, especially if the Argentines turn up in numbers. So things are not looking great, but they're not looking unsalvageable either. And there'd be a good few turns left to decide whether the Falklands are indeed liberated or whether the British are forced to call this off. But I'll leave that there. I hope that you found this interesting, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed putting it together. To all of you, a very big thank you for following this series. To my veterans, as always, hello guys. Thank you so much for staying with me. Thank you for all your support. And thank you for the lively conversations and comments. I always appreciate those. And as always, I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Any observations, questions, etc., more than welcome. If you happen to have joined my channel for the first time with this video, you're very, very welcome. Please look at the introduction to this game, which was my previous video, ad 1. And just to get an idea of what the background is and what it's about. And I'll very soon be putting up a final thoughts, concluding impressions video for Mrs. Thatcher's War. But if it's this particular game that brought you to my channel, I really hope you found it of use and that you enjoyed it. If you're here for wargaming generally, please feel free to wander around, take your pick of what's on offer, and I really hope I'll see you again. But wherever you are and whatever time zone you're watching this from, thank you again. It's really great to have your company, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Bye.